Lokati here. Today we are on the Ranger class for our one divine budget builds for T17 completion. We're going to be covering the Pathfinder today. Pathfinder is going to be a Viper Strike melee build, and then we are doing an Abomination map. This is players are cursed with vulnerability, which does hurt. Monsters have max endurance charges and power charges, so they hit harder, they survive longer, and they have 25% chaos res, so we're taking a cut to our damage of about a third. The extra maximum life is energy shield doesn't matter. We're chaos damage, and then we don't really reduce action speed, so that's not too bad. So it's just a little bit of extra damage, a little bit less damage. Shouldn't be too terrible of a map. Playstyle is pretty straightforward. You just go in and you Viper Strike everything. If it is tanky targets in particular, you can throw down your Arcanist brand first to get some curses out. And then we are using Blood Rage for additional attack speed and to help generate Frenzy Charges, although we have a lot of Frenzy Charge generation as it is. Clear on the build is pretty good. The splash damage from Viper Strike helps to spread poisons out very easily, and then the poison proliferation from Pathfinder makes a big difference in the quality of your poison spread. But as you can see, the map clear on the build is very solid. Tanky targets may take a little bit longer to kill. Just make sure you use your curses to help mitigate that. And as far as tankiness goes, we have a ton of layers of defenses. So you should feel perfectly fine in these maps. Wrong way. This is a Beyond map, so we are getting a ton of Beyond monsters in. Be careful, some of those guys can be pretty nasty. Now, most of our build's defenses do rely on getting hit, and so you're going to be diving into things and fighting them. If you stand far back from a bunch of proj blasts, that could be pretty bad, though. And we have boss room. Now, these bosses are pretty straightforward. We want to kill Dodri first, because we want to deal with the monoliths separate from the targets. You're going to keep your Blood Rage up because you're not killing anything to maintain it, and you're going to want to keep your curses up. And if things start to get too sketchy, feel free to leap out. As you can see, our single target is not too shabby. Dodri is going down at a relatively good pace here, as well as everything else because we can't control the splash. It is important to keep your life flask up. That is a large portion of our recovery. And don't forget to use your Arcanist brand to keep your curses up. You only need to cast the Arcanist brand about once every 12 to 15 seconds. We do have more duration on the curses, so that hopefully they will last longer, so you have less overlap. But it's not a lot to manage. And we don't have a coal on here, although in the live build we're running right now, we have 2 extra slots that I hadn't decided on what to do with. That would probably be a guard skill, but instead you can run a coal as opposed to the faster attacks on Leap Slam, and that would be a very good idea. We'll probably include that in the POB, both the guard skill and the Calling Strike on Leap Slam. Now, whenever these guys die, you get these monoliths that spawn. The monoliths cannot be cursed, but you do still need to keep curses on the bosses because Debilitate is important. But you take increased damage at a rate of 25%, and you do 50% less damage overall. So you just need to focus your time on killing this monolith because, as you can see, we're taking a lot more damage and we're dealing less damage. Less damage means less leech, less recovery, and a harder time staying alive. So you could get one shot by like an unfortunate series of things all coming together while you're working on this monolith. But the red one does need to go down first because your highest chance of getting killed is with this red monolith up. Like I said, don't forget to keep your curses up on the other two bosses because Debilitate is a tremendous damage reduction. And while this red monolith is up, we're probably going to stop keeping up Blood Rage because that extra 4% life per second is a significant recovery layer for us. It'll just take a little bit longer to kill this thing. Now when Chevron goes up in the air and starts hitting those projectiles down, if you get too low from a slam from Dodri, feel free to jump away. I jumped away there because I let my curses fall off so they're not debilitated. Now the monoliths cannot be cursed, so they also take a little bit longer to kill because a lot of our damage does come from the punishment curse. Now if this monolith is down, we can come over here and work on the green monolith. We will probably end up splashing and killing one of these bosses before this green monolith is dead because of the non-vol strikes. But we can go ahead and run Blood Rage again versus this thing. Looks like Malagaro is probably going to die from the splash first, which is going to be ideal for us. We probably don't have the recovery to really feel comfortable versus Chevron's Ghosted Phase. But Malagaro's Ghosted Phase is basically just stack debuffs on the outside of the room and don't go in them. As soon as the monoliths go dead, we double our damage again. And so the final boss will go down much quicker than these monoliths do. Now on a side note, I didn't include it because I'm not a big fan of the interaction, but if you wanted to boost your damage, you could run and manage a Plague Bearer. And that would be an overall increase in your damage. And we probably want to get these debuffs stacked over here in the corner somewhere from Malagaro. Instead, he's going to put them right on top of our thing here. That's fine. We can stand in one. Well, we can probably hit that monolith without standing in it. Do make sure to keep your curses up on Chevron. While we're going through the slow process of killing off this monolith here, we'll kind of go over our defensive layers. We have a ton of recovery layers, the first one being a flask enchanted with 15% damage take. Deaths happen. Apparently that debuff we could not live through. But just like the gauntlet, 3 portals counts, right? Alright, so we'll go over our recovery layers. The first one being our flask. We have an enchant that says 15% of damage taken is leached as life, so that covers our leech needs on the character. The second one we have is recovery on block, so we have percent life on block. That's 2 deaths to that debuff. We're going to have to stop running Blood Rage just for this monolith because Malagaro is putting out a poison that is not very fun. So we have recovery on hit, and that is our primary source of recovery, is the percent life on hit. And so like in this situation where Malagaro is putting a big bleed on us, or a big poison on us, and then not attacking us afterwards, we're losing out on that recovery. Good fucking god. Malagaro. He does this leap and slam, and that is putting the debuff on us that is killing us. And so we probably should have stuck with Chevron being killed second. We're blocking it most of the time, but when we don't block it, it is big damages. And we need a lot of incoming hits to power our leech and to power our block. And so when he jumps in the air, we should probably just move away. Those hits right there are what are keeping us alive from Chevron. Same thing with the daggers on the ground. Learning the boss mechanics is important when you don't have a build that deletes bosses. His monoliths are definitely the worst part of this fight. As soon as this monolith dies, we'll get back our 25% action speed. And then we'll start working on Chevron. Come on. Well, that coal would be really good right about now, wouldn't it? We'll make sure that it is included in the POB. Now we have some action speed back, so we can do more damage. More damage means more leech. More leech means more recovery. Same as before, keep your curses up on Chevron. She's going to go upstairs and become immune, and so we don't have any way to recover during that time other than our on-hit recovery and our flask. You can jump around if you want to dodge things while she's up in the air. That would probably be a good plan. And when she comes back down, refresh your curses and your blood rage. Now, when Chevron dies, Big Boss will come out. This guy's pretty straightforward. You just don't stand in puddles. That puddle is bad. Keep your curses up. Keep your blood rage going. most everything else that this guy does is completely manageable with your regular defenses, as long as you don't have a debuff from one of the puddles. At 39% chaos res after map explicit modifiers is a lot more damage reduction than we thought it was going to be. And just stay out of puddles and keep your curses up. Again, punishment curse means that we are backloaded for a large portion of our damage. So the first 50% goes by about twice as long as the last 50% does. And we're in execute phase, so this will go by much quicker. And boss dead, T17 complete. Pathfinder works. Take our fragments, and then we'll go look at our POB. Alright. As we said, this is a Viper Strike build. We are going to make sure that we replace faster attacks with Culling Strike there. And then in our boots, we would run a cast when damage taken and a steel skin. These would be the ideal links down in here. In the game, we just had 2 empty slots. I hadn't decided what to do with them yet. Faster attacks was just used in testing the build, and so I think both of those changes are going to be really good for us. But let's look at items first. First things first is a Dire Scalpel Eternal Sword. You have a few different ways to go about getting this sword. I bought a Fractured base for 1 Chaos because that's what was available. And then I used Essence on it to get Fizz attack speed and rolled it 3 or 4 times until I got attack speed on it. And then crafted hits can't be evaded. Now I did have to YOLO annul to get the other prefix off of there, but you could get lucky and not have a prefix on there. Alternatively, you can just search for a reasonable sword. A reasonable sword is fairly easy to find on this. You just go in here, we're looking for a one-handed sword. And then we're looking for sword, I tell you, one-handed sword. And then we're looking for empty prefix. And we just want the highest Fizz DPS sword that we can get with an empty prefix on it. You can set your budget to whatever you want. Set it to 40 Chaos so that you have a better sword if you want to. Or you can set this to 20 Chaos to stay under a budget. And you're going to sort this by physical DPS. And up at the top, here's a Midnight Blade that has an empty prefix and has 359 physical DPS. So you would take this sword, come over here, add it to the build. We're going to... Ooh, I didn't even do that. You should have a Runesmith Fizz damage enchant on this. They are very cheap. And then you will add a 36 Chaos hits can't be evaded prefix to it. And your weapon would look like this compared to the sword I was using. You're doing 1.2 mil DPS instead of 1.4 mil DPS. So you can definitely get these swords on a very cheap budget. If you want to spend more, you can spend as much as you want to on this. And you can get even better swords. Again, you just sort by physical DPS. This one up at the top is for Divine. And you would do the exact same thing on that one. You would put hits can't be evaded, although we would want one without Fizz damage modifier on it. This one has attack speed. We wouldn't want that one, so this one would be the next best one. And this is only 90 Chaos. It's 422 DPS. You have a lot of options on your physical sword here. On your shield, you're either going to buy a 5% life when you block shield, or you're going to just buy a cheap 1 Chaos Shaper shield and alt spam it until you get 5% life on block. On our helmet here, we're just looking for a cheap double res helmet with an empty suffix and life on the front of it. You can spend as much as you want to on that helmet, but I think I picked up this one for 5 Chaos. You want a Cam's Heart with just some useful corruption on it. Doesn't matter what it is. We want an Embalmer, the max frenzy charges. I think I paid like 20 Chaos for this. But you could have other useful corruptions on this as well. Yeah, 20 Chaos for that. You want Windscreen boots. These are like 5 Chaos boots. If you can find some with a useful corruption, that would be even better. Carnage Heart. We're going to allocate Testudo on that. And then we want 2 Ice Fang Orbits. These are not critical that you get 72% increased damage with poison. You just want a 58, 59, or 60% increased damage with poison. Those will cost you 1 Chaos a piece. And then you buy catalysts for, I think, 8 Chaos for 20 catalysts. And then catalyze these. So you can have both of these rings for 10 Chaos a piece. And your belt here, you just want a triple Res life belt. I think I paid 10 Chaos for this. You can get these all the time. Flask, we're running a life flask, an amethyst flask, a jade flask, a granite flask, and a silver flask. We want armor and evasion on some of the suffixes, and we want to craft damage taken from hits leached as life as an effect on there. And then our life flask, we just want a big life flask. Get one as big as you can. This one is 4,200 life over 5 seconds. You can do a shorter duration life flask, but you'll have a lower uptime on it, but you'll have better recovery during that uptime. And then our silver flask, we have reduced effective shock. It doesn't matter. We're Tempest Shield anyway. That's just what happens to be on the silver flask, that it charges on hit with an enemy. For our jewels here, we're just getting life jewels that fill our resistance or our stat needs, and then have some useful damaging stat on them. I paid like 5 to 10 Chaos for each of these. You can get all these all day long. Just use the search tool in here. Go to find best, execute it, and then go to this trade search. And then under show filters, you're going to add max life. And then, whatever other stats you're looking for. Get rid of these implicit searches because they're going to overcomplicate the search anyway. Set your budget here, 15 chaos. And there are 6 of these available right now that have strength on them, have increased max life, and then have some sort of damaging ability for you. This one has, for example, attack speed while holding a shield. And so you can grab these anytime. Just adjust this to whatever stats that you need. If you don't need strength anymore, you can go ahead and grab int. There's a couple of these with int on them. If you don't need int, you can grab, cold res. Or we'll just look for ele res in general. And you can find these with elemental reses on them as well. So just get useful jewels that have some damaging aspect and have increased max life. That's really what you're looking for. And so there's our gear. Total investment of around a div. Could be more, could be less, depending on the market and what you find and what you search for. Don't forget about utilizing your crafts to fill in holes in your build as well. Now for our skills, we are running Despair and Punishment on Arcanist Brand with more duration. We're running Vitality and Petrified Blood to make sure that we are always low life on our life reservation. This is wrong. Let me import our character real quick. Same gear that we just talked about, but our skills are different. We will still go in and fix Culling Strike here. And we will still go into our boots and add in Molten Shell and cast when damage taken. And then we're still running Despair, Arcanist Brand, Punishment, and more duration, but we're running Vitality, Petrified Blood to make sure that we are on low life all of the time. We're also running Tempest Shield with Determination tied to Eternal Blessing. And our main link is a Viper Strike, a Bloodthirst, a Multi-Strike, and an Unbound Ailments. Bloodthirst is only good for us if we keep our reservation below low life. So we're 55% low life because of our life mastery, so we need to be under 55%. And again, we use Petrified Blood with Vitality to control that, along with our Tempest Shield over here. And that'll be the skills that we're using for our passive tree. As you can see, it's not a typical Ranger passive tree because we are grabbing all of our life mastery nodes here. We need as much life as possible. We're also grabbing a block mastery node here and a block mastery node here. We are anointing Testudo to make sure that we are at 80% block rate. And then we have 50% spell block rate. We have 100% spell suppression strictly from the tree. We take Inveterate here, Entrench here, Mage Bane here, and Reflexes here. And then we're getting a little bit of damage from our Poison Mastery over here, Fatal Toxins. And we're becoming crit immune with Poison Mastery. And that is very, very important that you do maintain your crit immunity. We also have a Flask Mastery here, which is Field Medicine for life recovery and recover 4% of life when you use a flask. Because we're running charges when you're hit by an enemy down here, these flasks are triggering constantly. And so that is a massive part of our recovery and how we stay alive. Ideally, you would want 3 charges when you're hit by an enemy on all these, but these 2 only rolled 2. And so those are fine the way they are. But you would want to ideally have 3 charges so that those are triggering much more often. And then we're picking up jewel sockets all around and a couple of charges over here so that we have a little bit better access to charges. Now, if you're a higher level with the character, you got a frenzy charge accessible right here and another frenzy charge accessible right here. And so that's where I would put those next 2 points. And then scaling the build just comes into getting better gear all around. But that will get you to a T17 completion on the Pathfinder. If you have any questions, just leave a comment down below or come by Twitch. A lot of these interactions can get a little complex. And so thank you very much for watching. Y'all have a wonderful day.